Good morning. Thank you for having us speak this morning. Missions is definitely on our hearts, and can talk all the time about it. But so hopefully, we've got some information that be informative and also kind of give you an idea. If you've never been across the seas, to see how some other parts of the world are. Josh, you go ahead. So, in the Bible, it is filled with verses about going and about sharing and about being a witness. One of them is Acts 20:24. However, I consider my life worth nothing to me. My only aim is to finish the race and complete the task the Lord Jesus has given me, the task of testifying to the good news and God's grace. And you don't have to go across the world to do that. You can go across the street. You can go to your neighbors. You can go, while you're out shopping, eating. It doesn't have to be all the way on the other side of the world. Literally, where we go is you can't. By the time you get there, you're coming back home again. So, but the other Acts 1:8, which most everybody knows, that he tells you to be my witness in Jerusalem and in all Judea, Samaria, and the ends of the earth. So that means home, state, nation, and across the world. So what I've got on is what's called a batik, and it's a traditional shirt in Indonesia. Super comfortable. I wish we had them here. And so we've got presented several, and it's kind of funny because when we first started going, their sizes there are not our sizes here. You got to consider most Indonesians are probably about this tall, and so they gave me one shirt as a long sleeve, and sleeves come about to here on me. And so they've kind of learned, as big Americans, so they've kind of learned and started giving the shirts that actually fit now.
And what I'm wearing is called a kabaya. This is a traditional, they said they wear these like to weddings and things like that. And what happened, I was given some material after I had give a talk on how to teach Sunday school, and they gave me material. And our interpreter's mother is a seamstress. And since I'm considered large, she had me to her house. She measured me, drew out a design, and in 2 weeks she delivered this to me. So this is an actual handmade outfit, the embroidery, everything that she took the material and made it from. And wanted to tell you a few minutes about years ago, Josh and Terry felt led to go on a mission trip. And I kept saying, no way. For one, I'm not staying on an airplane that long. And for another, I'm not going somewhere where I don't know what they're going to eat, what they're going to do. And so I stayed home. And Josh and Terry went to Russia. And they came back, and they were so excited. They couldn't stop talking about it. And I'm like, all right, God, I guess you're giving me a kick. So I went to Russia 8 times, and then we started on the mission trips to Indonesia. And my first time to Indonesia, I got off the airplane after 20-something hours, and you step into the heat, and the language is being talked all around you, and I'm like, oh, this is not Georgia anymore. And now I have gone 5 times. We feel like they're our family. We talk to them regularly. So even no matter your age, no matter your health issues, if God is calling you, he will make it so that you can do these trips. I have some health issues. I didn't think I could do that. And every time I've gone, I've never had an issue, never had a flare-up, nothing. So God takes care of everything.
So in 98, had the opportunity the first time to go to Russia. And so for 3 years in a row, I had an excuse every year. I mean, there was a reason that I couldn't go. So finally, after the third year, I finally said, okay, I'll go. Well, I still remember it, and this was, I guess, in 2001. I still remember it. The first day that I was standing in Ascension Baptist Church in Bryansk, Russia, I was talking to the pastor and some of the men of the church, and we were talking about something, and I said, when I come back next year. So it just, I just knew I was where I was supposed to be. I know that some people, doesn't feel the calling to go internationally, but that is what I feel like God has called me to do. So not only Russia about 10 times, Tanzania, China, and now to Indonesia, and I would be going more often if I could, and hopefully once I retire, then that'll open it up even more that we can travel and go and actually go stay more than 2 weeks at a time also. I'll go ahead and go back to the other one, Josh. We was talking about the air flight. Typically about 23 hours from the time you leave Atlanta. But it's just a short 10,000 miles between here and Jakarta. So not too far, but actually when you look at the globe, as I was saying, pretty much if you stick a pin through the globe this way, you're pretty much on the other side of the world. So, but it's pretty wild. Okay. So the Indonesia, it is consists of 18,307 islands. That's the latest count. 6,000 of them are inhabited, and they sit where Indonesia is. It sits in the ring of fire. So there's volcano activity all over the place in that region. Some of the places we go, there's not a lot of activity. There's been in the past years, but if you notice, I've got some stars on here. And Jakarta is our main base, and that's where the Gethsemane Baptist Church is at, and that's where we kind of base out of. Surabaya, to the east of that is another island that has a women's shelter that we'll talk about. Kupang, down on the bottom right, that is where one of the orphanages are that we go minister to and do construction and help support. Then we've also been to Bali. We've been Semarang. There's a Baptist seminary there that years ago that the Southern Baptists the Southern Baptists used to support. Well, they were pretty much kicked out of the country and not able to provide support anymore. So the seminary was in ruins, and so we took a team over and did a lot of maintenance, a lot of construction on it. Bandung is another area that we've gone to, and then up in the top right, Pekanbaru is another orphanage that we support fully. So, as I was saying, Indonesia is a beautiful country. I mean, no matter where you go, just the glacier blue water around the ocean, the countryside, and Bali naturally is one of the resort areas that a lot of people like to go to for vacations because it is so, beautiful country. So, population of Indonesia is about 270 million. As I was saying, it consists of 18,000, and they keep counting islands because I think new ones pop up as volcanoes go up, erupt. It develops new islands. So kind of compared to the U.S., the average wage is $280 a month. So very, very poor. There's some areas, you either have a lot or you have nothing. Very very humble people. But the thing about it, when we're there, they will give you the shirt off their back. I mean, it's just incredible, and they give you the best they have. The need to share God is massive. So 87% Muslim, only 9.87% Christian, and so when you put that in perspective with the 9.87%, that leaves 234 million, almost 235 million people that does not know Christ. And so you figure you've got 235 million people just in that region that is heading to hell unless they accept Christ. And so, and you know, the need is great all over the world, but I mean, as you can see there, I mean, it's just tremendous. And everywhere you go, you have an opportunity. Everybody, just about everybody you meet, you have an opportunity to be able to share.
These are some of the mosques. Each area has their own mosque built. And so if you're in an area where there's a lot of wealth, of course, they've got a bigger, better mosque. And if you're not, then they're the smaller ones. However, they build them and have the speakers so loud that it's actually a competition with the Christian churches. The Christian churches have their speakers going, and the Muslims have their speakers going. So if you're in a small area and there's a church on one corner and the mosque on the other, it's kind of interesting to decide which way you're hearing. But it's what they do. The Muslims do that in order to distract from the Christian churches, but that does not stop them at all. And actually, it encourages them to just be louder.
So this is Yosemite Baptist Church, and they just recently went through a renovation because it was getting in bad shape. You notice that it's multi-story. Well, what happens? You have to get approval from the local imams in order to do anything with the church, and so a lot of bribery that's going on. Well, the pastor there, he refused to give any kind of bribes in order to do the construction, get the permits. The other thing is you cannot expand the space that you're on, and so the only way you have is to go up. Matter of fact, when they started this, they not only said you've got to stay on the same footprint as the old church, you've got to go back 20 feet from the front where you are today. So they had to tear out the 20 foot and then start going back up again. So as over the years, as they raised enough money, and then they were finally able to do the construction and complete it. So this is Pastor Raymond. He, incredible godly man, and he leads Gethsemane, but as I was talking about the money and not having funds as a whole, but even with that, they have managed to plant 18 more churches throughout Indonesia. So and they're still growing.
And they pay the pastors $50 a month too. The congregation contributes to the salary of the pastor that is living on the island that's trying to plant the church. And so it's, you know, to be in the ministry, it is definitely you have to be, you know, you definitely have to be called, because no other person in the right mind would do $50 a month to you know, be a full-time pastor. So Dr. Abraham, some of you probably know him here. He has a practice here in Snellville, and he is from Indonesia. When he was, his dad was a missionary, and they were under a lot of persecution when they were young, and so Dr. Ben has told me stories about hiding in the house because mobs was coming and burning Christian homes down.
and he said he just knew that they were going to get burned out. And but his dad gave him a one-way ticket to the U.S. And so he came, went to med school, paid his own way through med school, and now is a doctor. He felt the calling to go back to Indonesia. And so actually, his dad is the one that planted Gethsemane Baptist Church. And so now, he's had the opportunity to go back, and we've had the opportunity to further what his dad started. And the Muntus, they were some of the founding members also when they planted that church. So one of the things when we go, they love for our team to sing. And so what's really incredible is they're singing in Indonesian, we're singing in English. Same song, but different language, but you know exactly what it is, and you just know that God is there. God, no matter what language it is, we're speaking the same words.
And I want to say something about the members of the church. We around here, we complain if we got to drive 30 minutes to get to church. Well, a lot of this congregation drives 2 hours on a motorcycle to come to church twice a week, Wednesday night, Sunday morning, and Sunday night. And on Sundays after church, some of the church members let those people that's come far away stay at their homes until time to go back to church on Sunday night. And so they are committed to coming to church, and it doesn't matter the weather, whether it's raining, but you will see a whole family get off a motorcycle and come to church.
So when we go, a lot of times they will do a presentation of their local culture, beautiful clothes and what they do.
This was last year. We did a VBS at the church. They invite their church members, but they also invite the homeless community. So a lot of these children are from homeless families. They bring them to the church. They give them a snack or a meal each day, and we do Bible stories, singing, games, and then we meet at the end of the day and come in and have singing just like we do VBS here. This was one of the lessons that we did, and then after the lesson, they decided that this was a good thing to do with cups. They had never seen that many plastic cups at one place, and so they every time I went somewhere, I saw towers built with plastic cups. And this is another group of their kids are praising God, and you can see their hands are up in the air, and even the kids are grateful. And this is another one of the games that we were playing. In Indonesia, I asked them to take me to their Lifeway bookstore. And on top of being very small, they have very limited material. And so when we come, we try to bring as much material and supplies that we can possibly get 50 pounds in a suitcase. And so when the kids see something different, even the teenagers and the adults are as excited as our little children are when you get ready to play a new game. This was the babies and the younger kids. They have children's church also, and they never sit on the floor. There is always going to be a mat or a tarp, and your shoes are always off when you get ready to sit down. And so even with the babies, the parents will stay with the younger children, and they will all have Sunday school together, but the parent is there with that child, and then the other children all participate in whatever lesson that we've done. And here again is another, this was a VBS, and this is before the church was renovated, and these are the teenagers. And they are just like the teenagers here. Sometimes you got their attention and sometimes you don't. And we always have youth that go with us, and they always have lots of questions for the youth. They want to know, the differences between here and there. And one of their main questions is about school, because they're amazed that our kids get the summer off, and they only get, weeks at a time. And so that is always a topic of discussion as to why our kids get so much time off. At the end of VBS or at the end of anything, the Indonesians love taking pictures. Selfies, pictures with you, pictures as a group. And this was the last day of our VBS, and this was the group from the church and the homeless community and all the people who worked in the VBS with us. This is
the homeless ministry.
Yeah, the homeless ministry, where one of the church members, Emmanuel, has started his own homeless ministry. And he brings them to the church as often as they can. And when they come, they are just so full of Christ. I mean, they are the worshiping, and they are worshiping God. Their hands are in the air, and they're praising God.
And this is some of the kids from the homeless also. And, I mean, these people live, either out in the street or under bridges or wherever they can sleep. So they have absolutely nothing. So it is another way of sharing God's love and showing them love. So we'll move on. I talked about Kupang. Well, House of Joy is one of the orphanages that we support, and we have been going there now for 6 years or so, and we're doing a lot of construction. So this is kind of what it looked like when we first started going. And now, we've done a lot of renovation. We've done, and really helped support them. You notice this picture's kind of hazy. Well, this was one of the mornings. Sometimes they burn, and when they do, the air is just as thick as it can be when you get out. Typically, later in the morning, you get the ocean breeze because we're about a couple of miles from the ocean, and it'll help blow it all out. But and this was this past year past September when I was there. We had given all the kids. We took backpacks with us and presented to the kids. And this is all the orphans there at House of Joy. These 4 young ladies, incredible success story, because all 4 of these young ladies started out as small children in the orphanage. And they have, one of them has gone into IT, one is a midwife that works at the medical clinic that we built there close to the orphanage. One has gone into hotel management, and another one in hospital administration. So, and they're all godly women. And so, it has proven, with it being a God-filled orphanage, that, you can have success.
Some of the kids that are in these orphanages, they still have parents, but they live on islands where the education is not good. So the parents will send their children to live in orphanages so that they can get a better education and get a better start. And sometimes during the holidays, they do go back and see their parents, but a lot of times they do not. These children are basically given up just for their education, so they can have a good education.
One of the years we went, we bought all the children uniforms, because a lot of the schools, they all wear uniforms. There again, something they don't have that leisure of having. One of the VBSs was one of the lessons that all the kids participated in.
We were told that in the evening, we would do VBS with the children there at the orphanage, which there's 30-something children that live here at this orphanage. And they go from 4 or 5 up to the teenagers. And that, they would invite the neighboring children to come to the VBS. Well, by the second day of VBS, we had 300 children come. And so that's when you really dig deep and think, okay, how are we going to do this? And so, we divided the children up, young, middle, and old, and we had them split up. But by the end, like I said, and they said they couldn't believe it because they didn't think that many kids would come. And at each time these kids went home, the orphanage provided them with chocolate milk and a boiled egg. And a boiled egg is like $1 million to us to have that boiled egg.
While we're there, we stay at the orphanage, which is great because you get to be there, with the kids the whole time. But one of our meals, and in the morning we try to share, and everybody has the opportunity to share what they've experienced, and so the food is always great too. So I never lose weight while I'm there. This is Rudy and Pippet. They are the house parents at the orphanage and run everything.
They had come to this island when they were teenagers with a youth group. And when they saw how there was another orphanage on the island, and when they saw the condition of it and how the kids were being treated, they decided when they graduated school and got married that they would come and start their own orphanage here on the island, and that's what they've done. And Pippet has also started a preschool for the neighboring children, and a lot of them can't pay to come. But she has got I think there are 20-something children that come to the preschool every day.
This is Supri and Siri. Supri, they're Muslim. He does all the handiwork, all the construction, just routine maintenance and all that there at the orphanage. But I've seen a change in him over the years. Every morning at 5 o'clock, all the kids have a worship service before they get ready for school, before they do their chores and go to school. That's one of the greatest things I love there is when I wake up first thing in the morning, I hear all the kids singing and praising God. Absolutely incredible. So typically I'm up in there with them. But he participates. He will go in there with them. And when, singing the songs. And so I know that it is definitely in his heart.
They do their own Sunday service. There's a local church that they go to once a month, but they don't take the children there every Sunday. So the kids have their own church service, and Supri and his wife are always there. And as soon as we get off our van taking us there, I always tell him, I've got another Bible verse for you. We're gonna get there yet. And he just grins and smiles at me, and he knows we're working on him.
Yeah, and so I firmly believe that we'll have opportunity to see him to come to Christ. Matter of fact, one of his daughters this year, she was in Jakarta, and she reached out to some folks there at Gethsemane, so she has been attending church there. So, So
this is just another, on the last day of the orphanage, we're at the orphanage, we usually present the kids with the gift, like you said, book bags or tote bags. We try to bring something that we know that the children will need, and they always give us a gift. And every year, they have presented us with something, and these are called ties. The church in Gethsemane gave us those, and some of the smaller ones over here, the House of Joy and some of the other local people have gave to us. When you are given those, you're considered welcome into their family and to their tribe. And so when they present these to you, it's a big honor to be presented with one of their ties. And so, but each village and each community, they have their own colors. And so that's why you see so many different ones over there. every morning the kids have to get up, like he said, at 5. They have their worship time. They have their chores that they have to do. And then they go to school. After they get home from school, they have a nap time. And then later in the evening, they're all in there doing their homework. And then they have their dinner. And then they're out playing. And it's just like children we have here. And, you know, nap time or rest time, you can see the little boys peeking their heads out the windows because just like, I mean, they're wanting to be out just like our kids would when it's time to rest. But it's so hot during the middle part of the day that they ask, you know, they try to get them to lay down and rest.
One of the things that, you know, we do different things, and we bought lockers for all the kids because they had nowhere to put any of their belongings or anything. And so we supplied them, you know, with both the boys' rooms and the girls' rooms with the lockers.
And watching them put their sticker on there with their own name on it, you would have thought we gave them $1 million. They were so excited to have something that belonged to them.
So while we're there, we also try to treat them to different things. We take them to the beach, to the water park, but the transportation to take that many kids, as you can see, we kind of load them into what I call the jail wagon. But they actually had a water park there, and first time the kids had ever been able to go, and so they just absolutely had a blast, and along with all the adults there too.
And after that, we took them to Kentucky Fried Chicken, and they got their own meal. And so, like I said, they were smiling they smiled all day long.
So we'll take, you know, soccer balls and things like that. But if you'll notice in the background, the ground is nothing but lava rock. And so we'll take that, and when the next year we go back, it looks like that ball has been through a grinder because of hitting those sharp rocks. And the other thing about it, these kids, they're out there barefooted running on this stuff. I can't even hardly walk across it with shoes on. And they're out there like it's, you know, running in here. They also grow, they have a big garden, and so they grow their own vegetables and you know, chickens and cow. They have a cow, and then goats and pig. And so also we purchased additional land behind the orphanage, so they actually been able to expand the crops, and now they're able to sell some of those to help, you know, fund the orphanage.
The first year that we took our 10-year-old grandson, they fed us chicken that night, and he looks over at me and he said, "Gigi, I know that's one of those chickens I saw today, and I don't know if I can eat this."
So they were boiling eggs. We'll talk about, there's some other homeless areas they would go to, and boil eggs and take an egg and give it to each of them. Another construction project, we were building the entryway into the orphanage, and so we were out there working on it. I learned how to sling mud pretty good whenever we was doing it. Yeah, definitely get a little dirty, but that's okay. The other thing about just a quick, where Indonesia's at is just below the equator, and so pretty much year-round, 90s for the highs, 70s for the lows, and that's pretty much 365. This was the finished product after we got done with everything. So another project we had, none of the windows had screens, so flies, there's a fly season that, I mean, just as thick as everything. Also mosquitoes and things like that. So we went and built frames and put screens on all the windows and doors. Did change windows out, overhang.
And there's a job for everybody. It doesn't matter how old you are. We have everybody working, and the kids love to be out there with us helping too.
This was a playground site that we started. Well, as you can imagine, with it all being lava stone, I mean, it's like trying to chisel through metal. So we had a piece of rebar that was beveled on the end, and all of it was hand. We had no electric or any kind of big tools or anything. Matter of fact, we started out was planning on digging footings 18 inches deep, and we finally settled on about 12 inches on some of them. And so it actually put us behind a couple of days because the holes were just so hard to dig.
This was done in 4 days.
And so, yeah, as you can see, the various stages of the construction, we worked. I normally would get up at 5, and I'd start, and then, you know, we'd stop long enough to eat dinner, and then go back at it at nighttime trying to get it finished. So there again, no matter the age, I mean, everybody goes, there's something that everybody can do. We were still building it, but as soon as we hung those swings, the kids were anxious to get on it.
And I was trying to keep them from falling off, and then we just decided we would play too.
Yeah, well, I had welded the monkey bars, and so I figured I'd better test it out and make sure that, you know, it was strong enough. So yeah, they were sitting around watching us as we was working on it. So we finished the night before. We were flying out the next morning, and you notice the ground cover. At the end of the day, we just did not have time to finish that. Well, we started, you know, went in to get cleaned up for dinner and everything, and you could hear the kids out there playing and laughing and cutting up. And I said, no matter how hard it was worth every second of it. And some of these kids had to be shown how to swing because they had never been on one. They had no idea how to even swing.
One little boy went and grabbed his pillow, and he was going to spend the night out there on top of the
he was going to get on the platform. He was going to get on the platform and sleep out there. So the Indonesia team from the translators and everybody from church, we didn't know it. They stayed up all night and spread that. So the next morning, you know, I get up my normal time and I walk outside and hear it all finished. It just touched me to the core, because I said, why in the world didn't you tell us that you was going to do that? Because we know you'd be out here. So it's very good. This is the medical clinic that the foundation helped build, and it's right here to the right of the orphanage.
This is the first medical facility in this area. They normally have to go over an hour into town to be able to get to the hospital, and that's provided if they can pay. And if they can't pay, then there's no reason for them to go. And one of the women who used to be at the orphanage, we called her Mama Dor. And every year, you know, she helped cook, she helped take care of the children. And I always thought this lady was 60, 70 years old. And we got home 2 years ago, and we got word that Mama Dor died. And I was heartbroken, and found out she was only 50 years old. And she had had high blood pressure that had not been treated for years. And the clinic had started treating her, but by then it was too late. And so a lot of the Indonesians do not live to be 70 and 80 years old like we do here, 90.
The hospital is supported by the Baptist Hospital there in Indonesia. They supply the medical staff. We supply the building, and they supply the medical personnel. This is some of the nurses and the doctor that was there at the clinic.
They live there at the orphanage for the time that they are there. I think it's 2 years. They rotate every 2 years. This was at one of the refugee camps that we had gone to, and typically we would do that and go back to the House of Joy to eat. Well, this refugee camp insisted on feeding us. And one of the things that we've always tried to be careful of when we are on these trips is to make sure that we don't eat or drink anything that's going to make us sick. And all the teenagers that were with us, they were looking at me like, okay, now what are we supposed to do? And I looked at them and I said, I don't care if we get sick as a dog. These people went and fixed the best that they had, and we will eat. And of course, you know, teenage boys, they made a dent in this food, and the women were so excited that we all sat down and ate their meal. This was the school for one of the refugee camps, and we got there and they set up a medical facility in one room, and then we had the children in another. And we got there, and Indonesians, you might as well take your watch off. There is no such thing as being on time. So when we got there and there was no one there, I'm like, okay. And then later on we looked, there were people walking. They had walked 5 miles to come to the school so that they could be there. And so it took them a while to get there. And so, you know, when they hear that a Christian community, or Christians, or especially they call us the white people, are going to be there, they do everything they can to try to come because they do want to learn about Christ.
And this is one of the churches that and you can see the condition of the room there. You know, sometimes very small, but there again, it's a place to worship.
This is another refugee area. This was an old tannery. And when Indonesia had a civil war, and the islands divided, so when you had a lot of refugees that had nowhere to go. And so they came to this tannery, and inside of it they took tin and made themselves a building no bigger. I mean, a room for a family of 6 or 8 is no bigger than your sound area back there. And all that's up there is tin. And these people have lived here for 20 years. And I said, why doesn't the government do something? Well, they don't have that. The government does not assist them. The government does not help any of the refugees, or there's no welfare, there's no food bank. So everyone, when they're homeless, they're on their own. That was a little preschool where they were washing their hands for snack. And you see, they have one bowl for the soapy water and one bowl for the the rinse water, and everybody used the same bowl.
So one of the things, there's a women's shelter in Surabaya, and so last year someone had donated land, and we went to look at it to see if it was going to be suitable to build another women's shelter. And so this is another project the foundation had took on, where we're actually building a women's shelter. This year we had the groundbreaking, and so the construction has started. Go ahead. And so, as you notice, manual labor. And go ahead and rotate through them, Josh. The other thing, just like what we do, they start early in the morning, they work late into the night.
Construction workers normally live at the site where they're working. They just build a platform and 3 walls, and they eat, sleep, and work, and they stay there until they're completely done with the project.
So I visited the headquarters of the women's shelter in Surabaya, and they had babies there. And what happens is these moms, a lot of times it's rape, incest, and so they will come and have the baby and leave them. But with this group, you know, since they've started, they've saved over 900 babies from abortion. This is an orphanage in Pekanbaru. It's Hope of Nations, and this is where they're at right now, and the maximum they can have is about 21 kids. And so one of the things that this is the house parents at the orphanage, and then go ahead, Josh. And some of the kids there again, we took backpacks filled with some school supplies and all that. This is Pastor Ree Wyatt and his family. They serve that area. They've preschool. She works in the preschool. They're again a Christian preschool that brings in Muslim kids from the community. This is his church, and as you notice, there's condition is not very good at all. And so our next big project is we purchase land that we plan to build. We built the pastor and his wife a new home, and we're in the process now of trying to build a new orphanage, which will have a community room and the preschool all on this land. A couple of fish ponds. The pastor, does those, not only food but also sells the fish. Some of the kids at the preschool, and I was going to do a little selfie with some of them, and the next thing I know, I was just inundated with kids. Oh, it was great. Some of the crafts that we did with them. This in town, there's a little area that these families live in single rooms, and they live down a little alley, and this is their kitchen area out in the alley. And she was very honored that we would come visit her. One of the little girls. We're in front of the seminary in Jakarta now. Been doing a lot of construction there also. One of the projects this year was building bunk beds. And so a lot of them, as you see, they didn't have mattresses. So we bought mattresses and bought sheets. That one, whenever I walked in there to take a picture, he was holding up his sheet, and he was so proud. He said, "You made us so happy." And we gave him a set of sheets. Which other thing was funny, the guys, I'll put them on there, they were immediately ready to lay down on them. The girls, they put them on to take a picture, and then they take them off to wash them. So there again, we were doing additional work there at the seminary, doing a lot of painting. We had to scrape all the walls and clean all those. Just one of the homes, and this is kind of the road down behind the homes. Each home has security gates because the crime, is the petty crime and all that. The driveway, so you pull in and close the gates.
This is the pastor's home, and I'm always amazed how he could get that car in and out of there, because that's the space right there, and he pulls in off the road and gets it in there.
Our style of the 7-Eleven, and all right, keep going, Josh. Have a garbage man, that walks around and cleans. Traffic is incredible. No matter where you go, it is traffic.
Our grandson said it felt like playing chicken when you tried to cross the road, because the way you cross the road is you put your hand out and you start walking. And then I start praying, please don't let them keep coming.
And as we were saying, it's not uncommon to see 4 or 5 of a family on a single motorcycle. And the kids sound asleep, Motorcycles everywhere. You can be in the front of the line at a light, and before that light turns green, you've got about 500 motorcycles around you, because if there's a hole, they're going to pull into it. Another thing about the red lights, they're recommendations. You're liable to see anything. They carry everything on those motorcycles. They use them as trucks.
They even have Uber motorcycles now in Jakarta.
Little food vendors all over the place, which we don't typically eat at.
And this was a taxi.
So go ahead and scroll through some of these.
Now, this is in Jakarta. This is a large city built just like Atlanta. It's built, if you look downtown, the buildings, everything looks like what you would see looking in Atlanta. But these are the side roads and the homes, and these are stores, and a lot of people live above their stores. So it doesn't matter if you're in a small village or even in the big city. The poverty is everywhere.
One of the medical clinics was set up meds and see the local community. And a lot of times, there again, you're able to bring people in and witness to them just by being able to bring them in. One of the years in Bali, there was a sex slave home, the shelter that we went to, and these women had escaped, and so we were able to share and work with them. Some of the provisions that we try to, anytime we go to an orphanage, we try to bring food and try to bring provisions that they don't normally have.
Just another craft, the kids. When you start a craft with the children, you end up having every adult that's in the walking distance to come. And so they all enjoy doing the crafts with us. I know there's a lot of pictures, and we've been talking a lot. There's a lot that's been done, and there is a lot that still needs to be done. This year we'll be doing a grand opening for the women's shelter, and doing more construction at the orphanage. We'll be doing VBS. We'll be teaching Sunday school. And so when we're there those 10 days, they are packed from morning till night. We'll be going to the refugee camps. And this here is the children's bathroom at the orphanage. The square thing is where they fill it with water and take a bath. And, of course, that's the toilet beside it. But everything is tile. So the water, it goes wherever. And that's where they were washing their dishes outside. They do the dishes in or out, but there is no hot water. So everything is washed in cold water or normal temperature water. And this is someone that I'm going to let Terry tell her story, and then probably...
Yeah, we're going to have to, we'll run out of time.
But this is Lilith.
Yeah, Lilith. And as a teenager, someone invited her to church at Gethsemane. So she started going. Well, her father found out about it and forbid her to go and was beating her because she was going. She defied him anyway and went. She kept going. He found out, and he threatened to kill her.
Well, he would come and drag her out by her hair.
Yeah, he would come and drag her out. So finally, he kicked her out of the home. And so she steadfast and was Christian, became a Christian. And before he died, he was converted, and the mom also. So go ahead and stroll through the rest of those. Yeah, I knew that we was going to be pressed for time, but incredible. We're going back in June. So if God has ever laid on your heart, don't do like I did and delay 3 years. If God has laid on your heart to do something like this, by all means, do it. And and the thing about it, some of the teenagers that has gone and said, well, we can't afford it. We couldn't do it. And I said, well, if God's in this, He'll provide. One young lady, she wound up with over $1,000 more than what she needed to go. And so I told you, if God's in this, He will make a way. So if you're feeling led, then by all means just see me, and I can definitely get you all the information.
And we've just got a table over here of some of the things that's been given to us as gifts over the years, and you're welcome to come and look, touch, whatever you'd like to do. And if you have any questions, we'll be over here. But thank y'all very much. And like I said, it's hard to convey what it's like being there. So we hope that we at least gave you a little bit of a small bit of what it's like to be in Indonesia. But if you don't feel led to go, you can pray for us. There's lots of ways that some of the people, like I said, they try to raise the money for them to go. We have to buy the supplies for the crafts and the stories. So there's lots of ways that you can help. And, if you feel led to do that, we appreciate it. Thank you.
So now you'll be given opportunities to give. I promise you we'll keep doing this. And then if you want more time, Terry would be glad to come to your Sunday school class and speak with you. I'm going to have him to go and sit in with the youth and share with them. I felt like it may be a little more personal. They'd be a little more interested if we can rope them in one room. But what a blessing, what a blessing. And I want to tell you, Dr. Abraham, who goes, and there's a brochure over here about Legacy, the Legacy Orphanage and the Legacy Foundation. And it's going to be something that I want us to put in and us be involved in with our missions giving. I can literally tell you that Dr. Abraham is such a wonderful, wonderful person. He goes to Mount Zion Baptist. We talk about it when I go into his office. You can talk with Richard Huff. Richard's his patient as well. He literally has, I think, done such a wonderful job with my mother's health. And he goes and ministers there, and that foundation is very important to him. And maybe even sometime we get him, we talk him into coming and talking too. We're going to do this again, and I'm serious. If the Lord leads you about going with them next time, you do that. I can promise you our folks will love it and be a part of it. Amen? All right, y'all be sure to come over and look at these things and give them a big hug. Give them a round of applause for being with us this morning. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, well, let's pray, and then y'all can go in between to the bathroom, and then we'll get started again here in just a second, okay? All right, Father, we love you, and we're grateful for this morning. Thank you for what we've heard. Thank you that we know right now how blessed we are. If you had any doubt about how good we have it and how much we owe, Lord, we've seen it again afresh and anew this morning. Thank you for touching our heart. Thank you for allowing us to see the world. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray.